I'm going to go and show something on the screen here and just give you a bit of timeline here of what's been happening with the Huawei story. It's quite remarkable. I'm just going to fire this up to everybody. And let's have a look here. If you guys, can you guys see that okay on the screen? Let's just see. Let me go full screen on there. So this is kind of like a timeline on what's been going on in Huawei. And Lee, have a look at the screen here, and you can pretty much see that this has started, as early as 2000. So this has been going on for quite some time. So our viewers, we want to just kind of tackle the Huawei situation here, and. You see, in 2015, they were already trying to kind of get Huawei out of here on national security. In 2018, the U.S.-China trade war broke out. Not only were they hitting Huawei, they were hitting what was the other company they were going after, Lee?
ZTE.
ZTE. They were going after ZTE. You can see here in June 2018, the U.S. Congress began to take action against the Chinese companies, especially Huawei. His campaign included public statements, letters to the government, lawmaking to expel Huawei from the U.S. market. And this goes on and on and on and on. I'm going to leave that kind of scrolling while Lee and I get into it. So Lee, I want you to talk about, you and I spoke about this earlier, the British mobile carriers warn removing Huawei will cause blackouts and cause billions of dollars. Can you?
Yeah, well, what it was about 3 or 4 months ago, the UK government agreed sort of that Huawei were going to be part of the 5G build out in the UK, and however they were going to exclude them from the core of the network. Now, I can understand from a security point of view that you have to have, tight control over your core communications network. So I think it's a fair point to say you can exclude, that Huawei equipment from your core network. But they were going to allow them to build a roughly 35% of the network. But now that seems to be changing, where it looks as if the UK government are now going to exclude Huawei altogether. The decision hasn't been finally made, but it looks as if it's going that way. And now I have my own sort of opinion and thoughts about that it's due to pressure from America, and it's all wrapped up with the UK leaving the EU and needing desperately a good trade deal with the US. But the telcos, the telecommunications companies in the UK, like the Vodafones, the EEs, they've been putting a lot of pressure on the government to say, look, this is really not a good idea that we can't use Huawei equipment. The reason this is because a lot of the 4G infrastructure in the UK was built using Huawei equipment. So to upgrade to 5G, it's considerably cheaper because you don't have to replace all the equipment. You upgrade some, you add on. Now they're thinking of making these companies rip out all of the Huawei equipment and replacing it with Ericsson or Nokia equipment. Now, there's two major issues here. One, the telcos said this is going to delay the rollout by up to 2 years of rolling out proper 5G.
And Lee, I'll come into that. A Vodafone executive warned the firm they would have to spend single figures into the billions if we were forced to swap out Huawei. That is Vodafone. The UK government is reportedly preparing for Huawei to strip the gear from the country's 5G networks, which could take up to 3 to 5 years in total to replace.
Wow.
And delay even the outroll as pushed back as much as 2023.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about this, right? So you've got a few. The decision is now moving on that they're citing that it's because Huawei are involved in human rights abuses in Xinjiang against the Uyghurs. Now, this is such a straw man argument, really, that you ban a tech company because they were involved with, allegedly involved with this. And what's crazy is if you look at American companies that were also involved in supplying arms to Saudi Arabia to bomb Yemen. Nobody speaks about that. But the upshot of this to the British public is that, one, they're going to wait far longer to get a good, reliable, stable 5G service across the UK. And the telcos won't absorb that extra cost. These billions and billions of extra pounds it's going to cost. The telcos will pass that on to the consumers. So the consumers will end up paying more. And all this because I believe the UK want to please the US. And I think, personally, I think it's disgraceful to be fair.
So I'm just going to put, as you can see coming up on, this is the month of June and July. Here's what Huawei's been up to this month. Oh, gotta love, being under the spotlight here. These guys have been dragged through the mud here. So you see on the 3rd, Huawei brings an Uber rival Bolt to its app gallery store. And if, for all the viewers that aren't familiar with this, is Huawei is actually going to developers, getting help to actually come up with their own store. Most of their new phones do not have connectivity to the Google Play Store. And you know what? So far, so good. I mean, it seems to be working out. And some people are saying, you know what? Maybe I don't want to be attached to some of these other apps out there that may, be a privacy issue. June 30th, Huawei and ZTE officially designed national security threats by the FCC. The 25th of June, the Trump administration designated Huawei as backed by Chinese military. We're going back to the 17th of June, where their rival phones get EMI updates. I mean, there's tons and tons of updates on this. I mean, not only is the company under a lot of attack for its technology, it's under attack for its app store, it's under attack for its trading, but, another article to hit the papers. Meng Wanzhou's lawyers accused of misleading the court in the extradition case. Printed that, hell of a good read. Links in my description below.
It's really interesting that it's looking more and more like Canada didn't even properly check the information or America didn't give the information. It's almost looking more and more like Canada just arrested Meng Wanzhou on the say-so of the Americans.
Something I want people to think about.
An arbitrarily arrested Meng Wanzhou. Where have I heard that before?
The thing is what I want people to think about is when you're transferring transferring in the transfer hall in many companies, how did a woman that was traveling from Hong Kong, final destination in Mexico, managed to get pulled off a plane? Yes, you can transfer it. It's called the transfer it. It's kind of like a no man's land at airports. All of us know that by traveling. How does that all of a sudden result into a baggage search and then entered into the country to be arrested with the FBI on the side? Extraordinary. That also is in another article here. Huawei CFO raises new arguments to fight extradition. That's in there. You want to see it? I've already put the link in my description below. Okay. Another one that I want to go through quickly here as I'm burning through this. This here is complete since the year 2000. It's pretty thick. It shows you all the hits the company has taken. That is also in my link below of the show. Two more articles that I spent reading this week, as well as a lot of documents given to me by the Freedom of Information Act in Canada. This is a CSIS report. Predicted Meng Wanzhou arrest would cause shockwaves and trouble for Canada. You better believe it. That is also in my description box below.
Canada tried to hide the fact that the FBI were involved because they knew the consequences of it. Amazing, isn't it, eh?
Amazing. Another thing that's extraordinary about this is in that case, in the Meng case, they're bringing her up on corruption charges, money laundering charges, because they say they tricked HSBC. Excuse me, HSBC settled with the Department of Justice for $1.9 billion, and not one of their management was even arrested, extradited, brought up on charges or anything. And that just to add to this, guys. To add to this, hang on there, Lee. I gotta plow through this. The German state prosecutors are deciding if it should be a good, to investigate Wirecard. Broad daylight, $2 billion stolen from German bank accounts. Why isn't somebody arrested? And if hang on, Lee. One sec. I'm going to get to you. If you read the 24-page document by the Department of Justice in the United States, not once does it ever come up with a monetary value that Huawei has defrauded anyone of anything. And as I'm reading through the legal documents, I'm 450 pages into it this week. I have to spend some time with my wife before she kills me, but I mean, I'm digging and digging and digging and digging and digging, and I think, Meng, we are the reason why we're seeing all this rhetoric of banning apps, taking apps off the store, putting pressures on it. They're trying to break a company. It ain't going to happen. The clock's going to run out. I hope the two Michaels come back, and I hope Meng gets back to her role. And I'm going to go over to you, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely laughable, really, that the US are trying to say that senior management at HSBC didn't know about this situation. Huawei are one of HSBC's global top 20 customers. Yeah, they have billions of dollars of credit line. There's no way at all that HSBC senior staff were not involved in this. And I think it's getting more and more. I would imagine there's a lot of nervousness within the Canadian authorities now, because I think they know they've made a big mistake acting, being sort of the US's kind of lapdog doing their dirty laundry for them. And I think they're going to feel the wrath of China. I mean, I suspect Meng will walk free, because it's getting more and more ridiculous that the evidence is just, well, there is no evidence really of what they're accusing her of. The evidence has just all fell apart.
Lee, I'm reading through a legal document right now. Grasping at straws is even, I mean, it's extraordinary what we're witnessing here. You're basically seeing the equivalent of Tim Cook under house arrest in a foreign country on an extradition to Russia. That's how bizarre it is. That's where it's going. Yes, some might think, oh, it's okay, she can handle it, but I don't think anyone wants to be under house arrest for anything. Of course. Okay, yes, there's 1,000 other cases we can talk to, but since we're on the China topic, I think it's quite important to bring it up. I mean, they make a hell of good products. I like their products.
They make some amazing stuff.